What's going on, everyone? So as you guys know, if you've been following along, the Google Pixel 3a was just announced and released yesterday or the day before, depending on when I'm uploading this video. But I did those quick comparisons and literally I didn't even know the Google Pixel 3a was already available to be bought in stores. So I went ahead and bought it. So now we're actually going to do a pretty full comparison between the Google Pixel 3a and another rival in a way that's the cheapest offering from another competitor, which is the iPhone XR. Now, the surprising thing is the iPhone XR is actually a little bit noticeably more expensive than the Google Pixel 3a. The iPhone XR in the Apple Store right now, brand new, is about $750, but there are some trade-in values and some things here and there that Apple is providing you with that could mean it's a better deal, maybe, but the Google Pixel 3a is $399, but there's also like a $100 gift card program apparently that I was able to get. I don't know how long that's going to last. So whichever way you look at it, the Google Pixel 3a will technically be a cheaper phone overall, but is it a better deal? Are you getting more for your money? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Obviously, if you're on a budget and you can't even buy an iPhone XR, then the 3a is probably your better choice there. But in my opinion, the Google Pixel 3a does have some quirks, and some ways the iPhone XR is better, some ways the Google Pixel 3a is better. So let's just go ahead and see which one is a better value per dollar. So in the hand, surprisingly, they're both almost around the same size. The Google Pixel 3a is just a little bit longer than the iPhone XR, but also the iPhone XR is noticeably wider than the Google Pixel 3a. In my opinion, I kind of like the Google Pixel 3a a little bit more in the hand in terms of the way the body is, because it's a little bit longer and I feel like I can go from one point of the screen to the other, so that's kind of a big deal for me. I have small hands. You guys can judge me, you guys can make fun of me if you want to. But it is what it is. Now, one thing that I actually don't like a lot about the Google Pixel 3a, and I noticed this from my unboxing yesterday, it's crazy that I didn't even know think about this before really. The Google Pixel 3a feels so much cheaper than the iPhone XR, and you could say that the iPhone XR is more expensive, and that's probably why, because they couldn't afford to put newer parts or whatever, but they didn't have to put glass on the back of this, and on top of that, they didn't have to put this extremely cheap feeling plastic. I mean, this thing feels extremely cheap for even a $400 phone. It doesn't really feel, I mean, I've had like prepaid phones that were like less than $100 that feel more expensive than this thing. And even like the OnePlus 6 and the OnePlus 6T, like those phones weren't cheap feeling at all. And that was only like 100 or like not even $200 more expensive than this thing. So it's kind of surprising. I mean, I don't know what they were trying to go for. Of course, they had to like cut costs here and there, but that's pretty noticeable. The iPhone XR does have a glass back, so this thing does feel way more premium than the Google Pixel 3a. So kind of keep that in mind. In terms of the front, the iPhone XR has a 6.1 inch 828 by 1792 IPS panel. Now, it's really not that great of a panel, if I'm being honest, 326 pixels per inch. Looking at it now, I mean, it's still not that great. You do have True Tone, it makes it look a little bit better, but it's still not that good of a panel versus the Google Pixel 3a, which I think this is one of its highlights. It has a 5.6 inch 1080p panel. It's actually 1080p by 2220, so a little bit higher resolution than the standard 1080p you might expect. The PPI is also 441 pixels per inch, which was the same as the Google Pixel 2 and just a little bit less than the Google Pixel 3. So in my opinion, I would definitely say the advantage here, the Google Pixel 3a has such an advantage in terms of the screen. You're getting all those deep blacks. You have an always on display that you don't get on the iPhone XR. So I mean, I would say in terms of the screen, the Google Pixel 3a wins, but in terms of the whole entire package and the body and everything, I don't know, maybe the iPhone XR wins because it feels that much more premium. I wish I could just take the 3a screen and put it on the iPhone XR, then that would be awesome. But then that would pretty much just be like a XS or XS Max. So there's no waterproofness, no water certification on the 3a, which is a humongous deal. I feel like every phone nowadays should have some type of certification in terms of dust and water resistance, so that's super annoying. The iPhone XR does have IP67 dust and water resistance, which is a super cool thing. I mean, at this point, I feel like it shouldn't even be a bragging feature. It should just come standard for most phones. So it's weird that they didn't do that, but I guess they'll put it in the next one, I hope. Now, moving on to the software, the Pixel line was really notorious of having software support for a longer time than the standard like Android phones that usually came out, like LG's or Samsung's, but Apple, on the other hand, is also one of those companies that supports their phones. I'm pretty sure it's the only company that supports their phones for a very prolonged period of time, much longer than even the Pixel lines that Google makes. So yes, the Google Pixel will get software support for a pretty long time comparatively to like most other Android phones. But the iPhone XR, in my opinion, even though it's older, it will probably still outlast the Google Pixel 3a unless Google does something where they're like supporting their phones for much, much longer than expected. I mean, the Google Pixel original one is getting Android Q, so that's kind of one thing right there. Maybe they'll support this even longer, I don't know. But as it stands right now, I'm pretty sure the iPhone XR will last longer in terms of software support than the Google Pixel 3a, so kind of keep that in mind as well. It's kind of hard to tell right now, but that's kind of on average, so I think that pretty much covers everything from software and the way the phone feels in the hand. Now let's go ahead and talk about the performance. Now this isn't going to be like an apples to apples comparison, because obviously we're comparing an Android to an iPhone. But what I will tell you is both of these phones, in my opinion, are not bad at performance at all. And you guys are going to judge me again. I never said in my life the iPhone XR was a bad performing phone. I just said it had like quirks in here and there. However, I was honestly expecting the Google Pixel 3a to be a little bit of a worse performing phone than the iPhone XR, but it really doesn't seem like that's the case. It really feels like it can handle really anything I'm going to throw at it. Obviously, the iPhone XR is going to be perfectly fine. You have the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and 3 gigs of RAM, where you have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 670 chipset on the Google Pixel 3a, which really kind of brings it down a little bit in my opinion. You have an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 615 GPU, and 4 gigs of RAM, so only 1 gig of RAM difference between these. But even at that, I mean, like, I would honestly probably say, this might be a little controversial, maybe the iPhone XR is just a little bit faster in terms of my usage. The iPhone XR is a very fast performing phone, but so far from what I've tested, the Google Pixel 3a is also a very fast performing phone so far. It's not like the fastest thing. I would definitely say like the Google Pixel 3, even the Google Pixel 2 XL in my opinion were very fast performing phones. So in terms of performance, to kind of not make this thing drag longer than it needs to be, I will definitely say both of these phones are very good. I don't feel like one phone is drastically much faster than the other. If you're just buying one in terms of performance, you will probably end up getting more value per dollar from a 3a in terms of performance than maybe a 10R. But even at that, it really just depends which like software you like at the end of the day. Like, do you like iOS or do you like Android? If you're trying to figure out which one is faster, I don't really think it's like a solid comparison right here, if I'm being completely honest. So that kind of covers up everything in terms of performance. I know I kind of like beat around the bush, but like honestly, in real world use, that's all I'm looking at. And in my opinion, I really don't care that much about it. Unless I'm looking at like super old phone and a new phone, then that's cool. But in terms of these, there's really not too much anything crazy going on. Now moving on to the camera. So surprisingly, they're both single sensors. Even the Google Pixel 3 and 3 XL both had single sensors, but they had dual camera sensors on the phone, which is kind of funny. They're both 12 megapixel sensors. The Google Pixel 3a does have a 12.2 megapixel sensor, so it's clocked a little bit higher. They both have optical image stabilization. The Google Pixel 3a does have dual pixel technology, so that's pretty interesting. And I think you guys already know by now, the iPhone XR's camera is pretty good for being a single sensor. You don't have like that telephoto lens, but you do have portrait mode. You have somewhat of a wide angle lens as well. And I'll be honest, the iPhone XR's camera is pretty decent for what it is, and I never hated on it. I found that it's probably better than my 7 Plus camera and at least comparable to my iPhone 8 camera, but it's not as good as my iPhone 10 camera. The Google Pixel 3a, however, I think it's a pretty decent camera too. I mean, I'm not that big of a photographer, but from the pictures that I've been seeing, I mean, it looks pretty much identical to my Google Pixel 2 camera back in the day when I had that and I did a review on that. It looks pretty much identical to that. I kind of remember that some colors did look warmer on that, and that's one big thing that I've seen. The colors on the Google Pixel 3a do overall look more warm than the iPhone XR, so maybe that's just a screen because it is OLED, but from what I'm seeing, that's kind of the case. Colors kind of seem to pop more on the iPhone XR, which sounds weird because I was expecting the opposite, but again, it's my eyesight, how I'm seeing it. You might think of it a different way, and that's kind of the beauty of these things. No one is right or wrong. I feel like I should write a poem about that. But one thing I do love about the Google Pixel 3a and its camera, and more so the camera software, and I say this in every video, and I praise every manufacturer that does this, they put their camera settings in their camera app, and that's something that Apple still has not freaking figured out. I don't know why what are they waiting for? Put your camera settings, at least all of them, in the camera app. Like the Google Pixel 3a has this mode called Night Sight. You can actually take super decent looking photos in the nighttime, and at least when it's dark or something, and that's super cool. Now they're mostly basically for portrait mode type photos. If you take it of like your laptop or something, it's probably not going to look that good. But at least you have those type of options straight in the camera sensor and the camera app. So I really hope in the future Apple can go ahead and implement those in there. So in terms of camera and just camera software overall, I would probably honestly give the edge to the Google Pixel 3a. I don't think the iPhone XR's camera is horrible. Like if the 3a was like a 10 out of 10, the iPhone XR is probably like a 9 out of 10. Like it's not that big of a difference here and there. It's more so the camera app that's kind of bugging me the most, so that's kind of one thing to note right there. So the front cameras, you have a 7 megapixel camera on the iPhone XR and an 8 megapixel sensor on the Google Pixel 3a, and honestly I feel like they're almost exactly the same. Maybe the iPhone XR's camera is a little bit better in terms of the front one, but ultimately I really don't care that much. You are able to shoot 1080p at 60 frames per second on the front camera of the XR, so that's awesome. So overall, I mean, like I said, 10 out of 10 on the 3a, 9 or like 9.5 out of 10 on the 10R. So now moving on to battery life. Now this is one thing that I'll probably have to give it a couple more days to test out, but I'll probably tell you like this, and it's kind of up in the air, but so far from what I've been using it, it seems to me like maybe the iPhone XR might be a better battery life phone overall than the Google Pixel 3a. Now in terms of the sizes, you have a 2942 mAh battery on the iPhone XR and a 3000 mAh battery on the Google Pixel 3a. So that's not even that big of a difference. They're almost like the same thing. What I'll tell you is, because the Google Pixel 3a doesn't have a bigger screen, but it is high resolution. Although it is OLED, it's kind of supposed to save power here and there. I feel like the iPhone XR, because of its a lower resolution screen, super low for what it's supposed to be, and because it's not like as spec heavy, I'll be honest, as the Google Pixel 3a, it's still a spec heavy phone. It's not like as crazy as you might expect it to be. I've had pretty good battery life on my XR overall. I feel like it's one of the best iPhones out there for your battery life. Whereas on the Google Pixel 3a, I feel like so far from what I've been using it, it's not like going down super fast or anything, but from what I can tell, I can probably say that they're like neck and neck, but maybe the iPhone XR has the edge overall. Again, you're never going to be able to like fully test it out like 100%, but from my usage, I would say there's not like a huge discrepancy. Maybe the XR is just a little bit better, but again, I would say it's not like one's outlasts the other by like years and years or anything. So that kind of covers up that thing. I do want to hit up a couple more points for the Google Pixel 3a. It does have a fingerprint sensor on the back, which could be a plus, could be a con for you. Me personally, I like that a lot more than Face ID, so that's kind of a plus for me. Now, there's also a headphone jack on the Google Pixel 3a, which is kind of funny. If you're into that, they brought it back, so you have that type of ability. Now, one huge con for the 3a is that there's no wireless charging. That is something that the iPhone XR does have, so that's a pretty cool thing right there. And what I'll tell you overall, man, is if you need to buy a brand new phone in the market, you cannot afford to buy a used phone or whatever, then I would tell you, man, the 3a is one of the best choices you have right now, especially if you buy it within like the time frame that Google is still doing their special deal. You can get a $100 gift card when you purchase it, at least through Best Buy, maybe through the Google store as well. So I would really recommend that. You have literally nothing to lose. It's a very decent phone. It's a Pixel, so it'll last you for a while. I would probably just recommend putting a case on it because it doesn't feel the greatest. I feel like it feels extremely cheap for what it is. I'm surprised Google will put their branding on a phone that feels like this. That's my opinion. However, if you also need to buy a brand new phone, the iPhone XR, if you can spend the extra money, I feel like you're gaining some cool things that even the 3a doesn't have, which is wireless charging, a super premium build quality. This thing feels, even though it doesn't feel as good as a XS, it still feels much better than the 3a. You're getting longer software support. You're still maintaining a very good camera, very good battery life, and very good performance. So you can also get the iPhone XR in more storage variants than the Google Pixel 3a, which is only 64 gigs. You can get a lot more on the iPhone XR. So what I'll tell you is the 3a is not a bad phone at all. It kind of has some quirks here and there, but I feel like overall, as long as there's no like super wild things that are wrong with it, it's a very solid phone for the price. However, the iPhone XR, I think, might be a superior value. If you're in between a brand new 3a or a used iPhone XR, honestly, I would probably pick up a used iPhone XR. They're selling for around like $600 on the used market. I would probably end up picking up one of those if I wasn't on like an extreme budget, because there's only like $100 or $200 difference between those. So that's kind of one thing right there, kind of played by ear, but that's kind of how I would kind of sum these things up. Overall, the 3a, I like it a lot. It's a very solid phone. I plan on keeping it for a while. I feel like they could have done better on it, in my opinion. I just feel like you guys have to use it to kind of understand what I'm saying, but that's pretty much where I'm going to end it off. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out, but more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.